When I was in 6th grade, my English teacher hit her entire class with an assignment none of us saw coming. We were tasked with writing our very own short stories, complete with characters, an at least semi-coherent plot, and an overarching moral to the story. It seemed like a daunting task at the time. How could little 11-year-old me write a full-fledged short story? After only a few minutes in Microsoft Word, though, I quickly discovered that I was practically made to write narrative. It brought me joy like nothing else before, and I finished my story before any of my classmates. It was longer and, in my opinion, better than anything they had made during the project, and awakened my creative inclination towards writing that has stuck with me ever since. The story itself was fairly simple in design, and considering my entire literary history up to that point was focused on science fiction, it itself was science fiction. It was about an alien girl who eventually goes and leads a revolution against a hostile and bureaucratic space government, known as the Coalition of Intelligent Organisms. I didn't know it at the time, but that story was effectively the birthplace of one of my greatest achievements. That story was the birthplace of Entropy slaves. So what is Entropy slaves? More or less, it is a fictional universe I've developed over the course of about 5 years and counting. Unlike the story that spawned it, which, looking back, was actually pretty awful, Entropy Slaves has stuck with me for years since its genesis, evolving and adapting as I merge it with new ideas. It's something I plan to keep working on for hopefully the rest of my life, serving both as a world in which I can write out stories, and a medium through which I explore interesting hypothetical concepts. If you've never tried doing a little bit of world building yourself, I highly recommend it. It can keep you occupied for days on end and is a great way to bolster other creative outlets, like drawing and writing. I've always found myself more invested in a story when there is a believable world that supports it, as it provides opportunities to learn more about the characters and locations featured in the story by looking at how they fit into the universe it is set in. Through my universe, I hope to add a layer of depth and realism to other creative endeavors I pursue, making them more intriguing overall. Entropy Slaves had a very rocky start as far as fictional universes were concerned. It was limited in scope, focusing almost entirely on the exploits of the human race in the universe. The Coalition of Intelligent Organisms was, for the most part, the very first major element of Entropy Slaves that I ever developed, and it continues to be my favorite part of the universe. Beyond that, though, there wasn't a whole lot else. I had ideas floating around in my head about possible alien involvements, time travel, parallel universes. It was all very up in the air. Over time, though, I worked out the kinks and developed my universe further, drawing inspiration from various pieces of media that I consumed. Entropy Slaves, as it stands today, is a sort of hodgepodge of various concepts from a plethora of different sci-fi and fantasy universes, as well as certain musings and what-ifs I've had that I find particularly interesting. As a result, my universe is always becoming more complex and well-developed as I add in new characters, locations, and entities. That's not to say, though, that I never reach a point at which I think certain parts of my universe are complete. I like to think of the development of my universe as being akin to the growth of a tree. Anything that I want to add simply acts as another branch of the tree, building off of existing concepts. There are plenty of things in my universe that I have yet to flesh out entirely, which means I'll always have the capacity to add new things to it as my knowledge of the world increases. Considering my universe spans millions of years and involves countless civilizations, there's a good chance I'll never get bored. As it stands today, Entropy Slaves is what I would refer to as a science fantasy universe. Sure, it involves space and aliens, and there's plenty of actual science that I throw in to make certain things sound more plausible, but a large portion of my universe, at least the parts that I think are the most interesting, are almost completely separate from reality. There are no upper limits to the technology of most civilizations, and almost every rule of physics, nature, and science, in general, has been broken at some point. The universe of Entropy Slaves is dark and foreboding, haunted by the relics of long-gone alien civilizations that burgeoning new empires pick through in an effort to learn more about their grisly fates. Every aspect of my universe, from the hollowed-out hulls of planet-sized spacecraft to the inner machinations of the Coalition's corrupt bureaucracy, is meant to generate a sense of dread. It always seems like everything is spiraling out of control, and most of the time, it is. It is a universe rife with constant pain and suffering, where there usually is an evil, but not always a good to counterbalance it. Pretty much everyone is constantly scared, confused, or angry, and those that aren't are either deluding themselves or possessing immense secrets that could potentially alter the course of history. Empires stagnate, or destroy each other through conflict, allowing new civilizations to rise up and repeat the process. Owing to the name of my universe, Every civilization, no matter how powerful, is, in the end, a slave to entropy. That timeless force that ensures energy is always lost affects more than just thermodynamics. It is a fate that has been sealed for all intelligent life, a repeating, grim prophecy. If this all sounds sort of depressing, well, it is. I can't really argue with that, but it's something that I've spent a lot of time on, and I'm pretty proud of it. I like to think of it as a realistic hyper-dystopia of sorts, exposing the worst face of almost every political, social, and economic philosophy. I frequently get bashed by both my friends and family for being a bit too pessimistic at times, but the way I see it, having a bit of harsh reality injected directly into your bloodstream from time to time isn't a bad thing. My hope is that, through my universe and the stories that will eventually be developed within it, I'll encourage people to think critically about their worldview by putting it, along with almost every other worldview, in a negative light, thereby showing them the flaws in their thinking that they hopefully will want to fix. If I can't do that, well, at least I've given them an interesting story to muse over.